It's a lost generation. We starving for greatness. We hardly can make it, and truth is a pill that we hardly can take. Look at our generation, walking lost in this matrix, praying God come and save them. You'll do it for yourself if you really want to help, otherwise it'd be hard to escape. You're a lost generation. It's a lost generation. We starving for greatness. We hardly can make it, and truth is a pill that we hardly can take. Look at our generation, walking lost in this matrix, praying God come and save them. You'll do it for yourself if you really want to help, otherwise it'd be hard to escape. You're a lost generation, where everything's fun and games. We drink and we smoke just to numb the pain. We scream for the cops when a brother gets shot, then we march for our money, don't nothing change. Damn, I'm tired of these fucking games, shit. We gotta do something, man. They label us black, our history snatched. We don't even know where the fuck we came. They gave you another name, watched it and gave you another brain. We used to be scholars till they gave us dollars. You gotta realize this a fucking game, so make sure you play it right. When you give it your all, you sleep when you lay at night. I am a ray of light, that's an affirmation, something that you can say alright. I hope this work get exposed. I swear this cycle's getting old. How we giving all our children shit we couldn't deal with it. Shit from further from their souls. This world is so cold. Thinking myself like, damn, sometimes I don't want to have babies. Like, damn, what they gonna have faith in? I guess all I can say is, damn, this a lost generation. We starving for greatness. We hardly can make it, and truth is a pill that we hardly can take. Look at our generation, walking lost in this matrix, praying God come and save them. You'll do it for yourself if you really want to help, otherwise it'd be hard to escape. You're the lost generation. It's a lost generation. We starving for greatness. We hardly can make it, and truth is a pill that we hardly can take. Look at our generation, walking lost in this matrix, praying God come and save them. You'll do it for yourself if you really want to help, otherwise it'd be hard to escape. You're the lost generation, where the youngest be selling us dope and politicians sell us hope. We never noticed all the power we got in our hands. They trick us and tell us to vote. Why should I care about July 4th? That one what my people die for.
What up, Reginald?
Peace, brother. This shit won't our choice, so just find yours. There's different meanings of freedom, you need to define yours. Republican, Democrat, I don't get into that. They gotta give us back our voice. Cause how can the president speak for me? Or clean up the streets and find peace for me? They can't part the Red Sea for me. If I thought that, then I ain't even free. I'm just trying to tell them. The hand they dealing us is deadly. Let's come together for protection.
What's up, Miss John?
Water as weapons for harming my essence. It's time that we check. I need my people to help me. The time is now. We need plans. But we ain't got no hope, so we apply no vote and say y'all don't know, just keep praying. Damn, it's a lost generation. We starving for greatness. We hardly can make it, and truth is a pill that we can. Look at our generation, walking lost in this matrix.
That red pill, that red pill, that red pill.
You'll do it for yourself if you really want to help, otherwise it'd be hard to escape. For the lost generation, we starving for greatness. We hardly can make it, and truth is a pill that we hardly can take. Look at our generation, walking lost in this matrix, praying God come and save them. You'll do it for yourself if you really want to help, otherwise it'd be hard.
This song make me want to cry, y'all.
I think that you change.
Facts. I was just on AP shit. The minds of people.
Cool motherfuckers sat down a long time ago and said, let's figure out a way that we can control motherfuckers. And that's what they came up with, the Bible. Because if the guy wrote the Bible, I'm sure it would have been a revised copy by now. You know what I mean? Because a lot of shit has changed. And I've been looking for this revised copy, and I don't see it.
Facts. What's up, family? I know y'all. I was over there with AP. Y'all heard that nonsense. That's so brainwashed. It's just like sad. Sometimes I get up there, I get emotional. I be trying to tell them stuff. I be like caught up in my emotions, talking fast. I be trying to calm myself down because they be sucked in the matrix. It's so crazy though. Like sick. It's sad. Check this out, y'all. Let's get into this real quick.
"15 Untold Black History Inventors." Wasn't taught at school. Most people have heard about famous inventions, the light bulb, the cotton gin, and the penicillin. But did you know that many of the products we use every day were created by black people? Here's a list of Frederick McKinley Jones. If an invent Jones took out more than 60 patents throughout his life, including a patent for the roof-mounted cooling system that's used to refrigerate goods on transportation in the mid-1930s. He received a patent for his invention in 1905. Mckinley was criticized during the war. Dr. G. Jackson. Dr. Shirley Jackson, first African earned a doctorate in nuclear physics at MIT. In addition to her lengthy list of academic achievements, her experiments with theoretical physics, payback, ID, call waiting, and the fiber optic cable. Today, 18th president of Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute in Troy, New York. Louis Latimer. Inventor and engineer Louis Latimer was born in Chelsea, Massachusetts, on September 4, 1848. He collaborated with science greats Hiram Maxim and Thomas Edison. One of Latimer's greatest inventions, carbon filament, a vital component of the light bulb. His inventions didn't stop there. Working with Alexander Graham Bell, Latimer helped draft the patent for Bell in an early air conditioning unit. So the next time you're escaping on meet Marie Van Britten Brown. Although she was a full-time nurse, she recognized the security threats to her home and devised a system that would alert her of strangers at her door and contact relevant authorities as quickly as the button, when pressed, would immediately contact the police. Her patent laid the groundwork for the modern closed-circuit television system that is widely used for surveillance, home security systems, and traffic monitor. Improvements he made to pacemakers after losing his mother. But this single improvement was among a long list of achievements. Boykin had 26 patents in his name and is famed for the development of computers, burglar used in controlled missiles and other devices. Lonnie G Johnson. Did you ever enjoy water gun fights as a kid? Well, meet Lonnie Johnson, the man that gave us the most famous water gun, the Super. Lonnie wasn't a toy maker. He was actually an aerospace engineer for NASA with a resume boasting a stint with the U.S. Air Force, work on the Galileo Jupiter probe and Mars Observer project, and more than 40 patents. Yes, he is also working on the Johnson Thermoelectric Energy Converter, JTEC, which converts heat directly into electricity. But it's the squirt gun he created that has given us all the most joy. Charles Drew. Every 2 seconds someone in the U.S. needs blood. The physician, surgeon, he played a major role in developing the first large-scale blood banks and blood plasma programs. He also invented the and get ready wheels. These are the refrigerated trucks that, where it is needed most. During a time when blood donation was still separated along lines of race. Drew eventually resigned from his position with the American Red Cross over their insistence on adhering to this policy. The Red Cross finally recognized all blood as Marion Croak was inducted into Women in Technology International's Hall of Fame, a move that recognizes her remarkable achievements in tech. Croak had 5 patents, primarily in voice-over Internet Protocol, VoIP, some in other areas. She has another 100 patents currently under review. Today, Marion is an SVP at AT&T, serves as a mentor for women in AT&T Labs, and sits on the board for the Holocaust, Genocide and Human Rights Education Center. Lisa Jalobter. If you ever enjoyed an animated GIF on the web, like this one amazing clip of a kitten being scared by an iguana, then you have Lisa Jalobter to thank. Jalobter was integrally involved with the advent of shockwave, a technology that formed the beginning of web animation. She also played a major role in the emergence of online video. Senior management team at Hulu. Previously, Lisa was the interim head of digital for technology, product, and business operations. In the United States Digital Service Education. Philip Emeagwali. Due to cost, Philip Emeagwali was one of the called the Bill Gates of Africa. As an adult, the construction work is to invent the world's able to perform 3.1 calculations per second. Just one of America's 13, he became of Chicago's youngest student. Wilkins continued his studies there, earning bachelor and eventually earning his doctorate degree in mathematics at American New York. He perfected lens design for microscopes and ophthalmologic uses. His greatest contribution to scholarship was the development of mathematical models to explain gamma radiation and his work on developing a shielding against gamma radiation. His other claim to fame came from working on the Manhattan Project. At the Manhattan Project, Wilkins worked with future Nobel laureate Eugene Wigner and made significant contributions to nuclear reactor physics, now known as the Wilkins effect and the Wigner-Wilkins. One of the most famous black inventors ever, McCoy was credited for 50 inventions over the span of his career. In an effort to improve efficiency and elimination of trains, McCoy devised a method of automating the task. In 1872, he developed a lubricating cup that could automatically drip oil when and where needed, vital in avoiding sticking to the track. The railroad company Inventors attempted to steal his idea and sell their own version. They insisted on the authentic device, calling it the real McCoy. Garrett Morgan. Those who survived either of the World War thanks to a gas mask have Garrett Morgan to thank. Morgan first created things, later modifying it to carry its own air supply, making it the world's first effective gas masks. He also had the good Wilkins worked with future Nobel laureate Eugene Wigner and made known as the Wilkins effect and the Wigner-Wilkins of the most famous Hispanic, the frequent method of auto-lubricating, avoiding sticking to the track, or it came in from Earth that when other ice companies were knowing it, the rear of the world Morgan Pokey built it, the world's first at a third position, just seduced auto and her technical lives better later, disabled from tissue holder.
Okay, did y'all like out? I want to see what shit. Guys, I hope I don't have to close it out. It's already buffering, but we gonna see. Y'all know what it is. Sometimes it's smooth going, sometimes it's not. So let's try it. Let's see what it do real quick. We gonna try it.
At the close of the U.S. Civil War, the black population in the Kentucky counties of Bell, Harlan, 0.34%. At the turn, would change significantly coal fields.
If you look at that period, late 1800s, early 1900s, there basically were three types of coal communities, which were pretty rough areas, and the others of the coal mines were not too concerned about the housing for their labor. These might be considered just shacks. Then you've got coal towns, a town where the manager, the owner of the mine, really tried to develop a community. It was not quite at the level of these large described as these model towns. Benham and Lynch, there's Wheelwright, Inland Steel was the operator. Railroad ran a spur up to what is now Cumberland, Kentucky. He was Johnson Steel came in and started building a town. Eventually, this town was as we model town in a sense that it had all the buildings and items that you would expect to find in a mature town. Probably about 500 or 600 houses initially. There were schools, there was a hospital, YMCA, company store. Of course, they put in the necessary for coal mining with wash houses and tipples and so on. About 7 years later, in 1917, U.S. Steel had purchased property further up Looney Creek. U.S. Steel started building a town which became known as Lynch, Kentucky. Lynch was a much larger town. Lynch had close to 2,000 residents. These were complete communities. There were doctors and nurses at the hospital. There were very well qualified teachers in the schools.
Why build a model town? Why go to that expense? And there are several reasons for this. Number one, build a place that will attract and keep miners. The companies wanted to prevent unionization. So if you made the place as nice as you could and as attractive as you could, you wouldn't lose the social control that they prize so much all across the United States. No production. No production means lost profit. If they can prevent unions and attract workers, 2 points. The whole point of the town was production and profit. And if you could create a system, in these towns were systems that would keep production flowing and profits up, it was not only good for your career company. In terms of, it's called a judicious mixture, in which they tried to get equal numbers of European immigrants, of blacks from the South, and of native whites from the local area. And by doing this, they felt that they also prevent unionization because they could pit these groups against one another.
And these were what you would call captured mines, because everything that came
and the majority of those men were recruited from Alabama, and that was for a very, very specific reason, because there were coal mines in Alabama, and the companies that were setting up shop in Harlan County owned in Alabama, so they knew exactly where to get the labor. They also knew that most of the black coal mining labor, Alabama was
Racist behaviors, blacks were often rounded up and falsely imprisoned, put on chain gangs, and then out for the sheriff's profit.
So very easy and attractive to lure potential laborers to migrate to Eastern Kentucky. It's the early 1900s. Alabama was a wretched environment in terms of just racial violence. So the companies sent labor agents to go get men. For example, in Lynch, there was a guy named Limehouse. White guy, they say that he was skinny and he used to wear a straw hat. He drove a truck that carried watermelon and sugarcane and corn, things like that. And he would smuggle Black men from Alabama, sometimes in the middle of the night, and bring them to Lynch. One, whatever agreement they had with Limehouse would then agree to go back and get their wives and their children. So that's how many of the early families got there.
Well, in 41, my dad was working at steel mills pipe shop in Birmingham for U.S. Steel, and he left there and come up here to work in the mine. And later on, he brought his son up there. He had a wife and 3 kids, and so we came up here. When I was 13 years old, it was long. In the car, on old narrow roads, 35, 40 miles an hour. We left in the morning, Birmingham about 7, 8 o'clock, and got here about 9 or 10 at night, and drove into the city, well into Cumberland and Benham and Lynch, all of them combined, and all the lights and out. Couldn't see nothing but mountains. So I cried for about a week.
Everett, Kentucky. I live in Cleveland, Ohio now. It's a small coal mining area where my dad worked in the coal mines there. And my mother worked as a housekeeper. My dad, he was born in Georgia, and his family moved to Kentucky. He married my mother. My mother was from Pennington Gap, Virginia, and they had 8 children. And that's where we lived until like 1954. I went to an all-Black school from kindergarten to the 8th grade. I went to Everett's Black School. My kids, they couldn't fathom a one-room schoolhouse. So one year we took our kids to Kentucky and they saw the one-room schoolhouse. And my kids said, "This ain't nothing but a little box." See, wasn't that many children. You had one teacher taught 1 through the 8th grade. And after you got to high school in 9th grade, you went to Harlan. Roosevelt High School camps like Everett's, Verdia, High Splint, Clover Splint, all of those little small coal mining camps fed into one high school.
Well, this building that we're sitting in right now originally was the Lynch Colored School. This is where all the Blacks went to this school, Lynch Colored School. And like I say, even they
bought the teachers in, they built the building, and the kids didn't have anything else to do. That was true enough. They would come down to these schools and check the list of the ones that didn't show up. And about 8:30, 9 o'clock, they were at your house checking, see why the kids didn't go to school. Kentucky, and is the church, Corinth Baptist Church. Now, Elkhorn Coal Company, back in the early 20s, and they built a schoolhouse for the black kids. And the black school was here in Fleming. They had teachers. My mom, she was from Canton, Mississippi, and then they moved up to a place called Hayman, Kentucky. My granddad, he worked coal mines, and then he didn't work in coal mines anymore. My dad came from Spring City, Tennessee. The way they did the Elkhorn Coal Company, and they would have, if they had a black man working, and they'd see how good he could work, and they'd ask him, "Have you got any brothers or cousins that might want to work?" And if they said yeah, and they lived in Alabama, had a company store, you could get food and clothing, everything from the company store. And they'd had this, what they call script. And my dad would work and my mom would go down to the company store. It's like credits. He would get stuff that would come out of his pay when he got paid. I remember he got his little finger, he got 2 fingers cut off. A buggy run across and cut off 2 of his fingers. And he got maybe $200 for that. When people would see him and ask him, "Clarence, what happened to your fingers?" My family ate them fingers off, he'd say, because what money he got went for the family, you know.
Kentucky coal mining area where we worked in the coal mine 30 years. I went in the coal mine in 68. Been a United Mine Worker, black. Working together and getting back outside, and don't take no chances underground, because I ain't nobody roof boater for 17 or 18 years.
Everybody in Lynch belonged to UMW. Everybody in Billum had their own little, another union, not the same. They were in Jenkins and Wheelwright and Pikeville, and in we from West Virginia, you know, anywhere that they had a lot of black coal miners. Guards up here in 39 just to stop the war, shooting and killing each other, union and non-union. Liked about it then when the thing was segregated. And the United Mine Workers had a slogan like, "Mining is dangerous. Nobody, we all work together, right? So you gotta depend on each other. You get, and then there wasn't no black got still. That was it. And that was the good part about it. Way back in the 50s.
And to go on Smith Thomas, Patsy Tinsley. It was a couple white women that went in. All of them went by my mom. To practice this spin, I drove a coal cart. I got it loaded on the trucks like that. And they cut coal and chiseled and done just like men.
Ezell Gerard Smith. I'm from Lynch, Kentucky, and now I live in Louisville.
I'm sorry, guys. I don't know how long y'all was waiting for me. I was like literally away from the computer doing stuff. I'm thinking, oh, it's playing fine. Let me get up and do this real quick. As I do that, obviously the stupid jump cut out. But here we go. I got you. Let's see. Kind of rude of you, girl. Sorry about that, people. I got you now.
I remember fairness. I remember the competitiveness. I remember the rivalries that blossomed into, indelible friendships and mutual respect.
They went out and hired workers based on their athletic ability. Willie Watts told us that the way he got to Lynch was that because he was a good hitter and could play infield very well. And in reviewing old personnel records, we found some that were termination notices in a file. Could not hit, was not a good fielder. So these people were let go for their athletic ability.
The leagues, the recreation leagues, were segregated by race, but these folks scrimmaged against each other to make each other better, because the pride of the whole town was riding on the success of either a black or a white team or both teams.
The sports life here in Lynch. Look around these walls, you see all kinds of photos of high school sports. Took a lot of pride as being a pirate. Growing up, you envied and admired the older guys who were already playing sports, and look forward that you could don the blue and gold.
One thing about U.S. Steel, if you were a good student and a good athlete, they looked out for you. The kids in Eastern Kentucky, the reason they got to be so good, nobody was going to pick you on their team if you couldn't play, if you wasn't good. Everybody tried to be the best they could. Millsburg, all these other cities that we used to compete against, and now we all buddy, and we talk about old times. And
That area where we grew up, they knew how to raise their young and discipline at home, but you were disciplined, in the community if you got out of line. And I've always felt before the book came out on how to raise it, it was done.
Still know everybody, even coming back home with your kids. People don't know the kids, they can see them. Oh, that's a Smith, or that's a Clark, or that's a Ward, or that's a, that's a Snow. Everybody know who you are, even if they don't know you personally.
I live now in Louisville, Kentucky, by way of Lynch, Kentucky. As a kid, I remember many things. Best place in the world to have been raised as a kid. Children had free hand to play. Fear. Lynch itself was basically on equal type of a situation. And we all lived in different camps, like from Camp 1 to Camp 7. We all had our own little area, what they call a boarding house, where most people attended that for parties, etc. A lot of men house. Then the number one spot that I usually identify home away from home, where people mostly came to, was the hot spot for.
Growing up in Benham, it was a segregated we black folk lived in the eastern part of Benham. Everything that was dirty was in the coal mines on the mountainsides, on the north mountain side, as well as the south mountain in Benham. The coal dump, where they pile coal up and sometimes 3 and 4, 5 stories high, was in the black community, where the coal cars were repaired and made all of the noise and the dust and the dirt was in the black community. The bathhouses, there were 2 bathhouses, one for whites and one for the blacks. My father worked in the coal mine with the white coal miners. And when he came from the coal mines, he went to the left to go home, and they would go to the right to go home. Environment was set up. Main facilities in Benham were in the white community, such as uh, the company store, the international department store in Benham, and they owned the meat market in Benham. Ernie Ford sang the song out. My daddy did, and they would take from his paycheck every week, but they still would not allow him at times to on that company charge account. When I was approximately 4 years old, I remember being in the meat market with my mother.
Man, y'all see what I gotta go through? Oh, Reginald, thank you, sweetheart. I appreciate you for saying that, darling. I was rushing through. I was like, oh my gosh, when there's certain people up there, we ain't gonna mention names, certain people you cannot sometimes get through without them interrupting you. And sometimes my thoughts are so jumbled because I'm trying to condense what I want to say into a short amount of words before I'm interrupted. And yeah, so I'm glad, brother. I appreciate that you said that. So hopefully, other people were able to appreciate that. Hopefully, obtain some information from that. Like I try to do, but it is what it is. But yeah, let's try and see if we can get this going now. I'm gonna try it one more time, guys, because I want y'all to finish this. I'm gonna put the link. Actually, let me drop the link. So if it cuts out again, we'll just go ahead and end it. You guys can try and pick up on this on your own, because of course this thing will not let me continue to play what I want to play and say what I want to say in the comments is what it seems like. So give me a moment to get this together, guys. Okay, the link for you as well. In case you want to finish watching this and we can't get through it.
Being in Everett's Black Mountain, Putney Home, Wallace Creek, Smith, which is some of the uglier places, Smith, Wallace Creek, and places like that, they would always try me first. And I would always just be.
Jerome Ratchford, and of course, I'm from southeastern Kentucky, specifically Lynch, Kentucky, Harlan County. Been in Atlanta, Georgia, almost 40 years now. It's from Talladega, Alabama. And my mother, which is somewhat of an exception, was from Louisiana. Even when I talk about segregation, and we did live in a segregated community, it wasn't South, and I got a chance to see some of the rudiments of strict segregation. I wouldn't classify Lynch as, for example, I don't remember seeing a separate water fountain for blacks and whites in Lynch county seat or something of that sort. But in terms of looking in consequence, it's very tragic consequences. If you didn't honor certain kinds of codes, we didn't grow up with that kind of rigidity and so forth. White communities and black communities floated together pretty easily on certain lines of demarcation and so forth. But there were some signs, a lot of signs of segregation as well. To those minds and who could become a super and what have you.
So if we kind of look at this on a generational arc, you had from the Black population in Harlan County alone goes from
The percentage of Black residents in neighboring eastern Kentucky, the height of the region's coal mining.
But between 1940 and 1970, Harlan County lost 70% of its Black population. The mines were starting to close down, and the mining industry was racialized like all other labor. Who'd they lay off first? Black folks. You gotta go. This was very clear that there would be no job opportunities for their children. So all adults in the community really embraced instilling in their kids from a very young age. You have to be not only prepared to leave this place, but you have to be prepared to compete in an integrated society, which is something that none of them had ever done. At the same time, the African American Great Migration is booming, right? Black folks are moving from all over the South. They're leaving from Georgia and Alabama, what these Kentucky Black folks' parents had done a generation ago, starting to in the South. They're going straight from Bessemer to New York City, straight to DC, straight to Detroit, and that's what the jobs were at that time. Well, you go back up to the mountain, mom and dad were growing up. Where did they go for the summers when they were on vacation? To visit those very Alabama who had migrated to Cleveland, and they go visit them for the summers. What does that do? It plants a seed. When I grow up, moving to New York. That's what my father did. That's how my brother and I, story is very emblematic of how it kind of unfolded during generation of the out-migration, which really started around your 1940s and 60s. You've got a particular city for you to migrate there too, because you get set up, you can live there for a little while until you find a job. So that is the way in which the majority of folks migrated. But there were some other cool patterns. One was
that after the war, work had got real slack. I did working like 3 days a week. I didn't see where I was getting to. Korea War broke out, and they had just recruiting sergeant. There was some good outlets. He up here recruited me to go in the Marine Corps to play basketball. So
the integration of the United States military really served as symbolic the opening of a new window of opportunity or possibility for the way that Black men thought about what their life pathway might be. And that really created a new kind of migratory structure as well. And that is how many folks who ended up out west did so through the military.
And I had a choice of joining the military, working in a coal mine, or going to another city where you go and get employment, like Chicago, Cleveland. Wanted to invite me for that particular time, so my choice was to join the Air Force in 1960. Leave coming to Louisville, Kentucky, where I reside now. And that was just like, that is once on your Texas. That was something that you read about, I thought,
right after they cut down to about 12 to 1,500. They didn't need all those people. So some had family in Brooksville. They would go to Cleveland, automobile places, steel mills up there and get jobs.
Well, some went to Cleveland, some went to New York,
San Antonio, Texas,
New Jersey.
You read about, I thought,
Right after the Second World War, we had 4 or 5,000 people.
And she got a job, and she got an apartment, and she sent for the next soldiers, Cardell. She goes up there, and she gets her a job. And Janice, the next one, did. And my brother Casey, he went there, and we all stayed at my sister house. That's how most of my family got to Indianapolis. But I haven't left. Here in Fleming, there's 2 black families now. Used to you sit and people walk up and down the street all the time. Now you don't see anybody, you know. Well, Bishop Lamb Church of God, it's the truth. They're the only black church in Mac Roberts, and then the Pike, New York, New Jersey,
Baptist
Louisiana,
church,
my sister,
and it still sits on the mountainside.
And
The
she got a
third
job.
Sunday
She got a
of
part.
each month,
And then she sent for
the Baptists
next
would
party.
have access. Second and the
And
Methodists
my brother
would have
Casey, he went
access
there.
to the
We all
church.
stayed
But every
at
Sunday, first, second,
my
third,
sister's
fourth, and
house.
fifth,
That's how
we all
most of
went
my
to
family
church
got to
together anyway.
Indianapolis. But I
It's
haven't
been
left.
about
Here in Fleming, there's
5 or 6
2
years
black families now.
since that
Used to you
we
sit
had
and people walk up
a
and down the street
service
all the time. Now
on a
you don't see
Memorial Day
anybody.
weekend at the Rising
Bishop
Star
Lamb
Baptist Church.
Church of God,
There
it's
just aren't
black church in
enough
Mac Roberts, and then
now
this is
living
one
in
in
Benham,
Fleming. And there's
Kentucky.
no more around. You get to Pikeville. And there's 2 black churches in Pikeville.
Our church, the Rising Star Baptist Church, is on the mountainside in Benham, Kentucky right now. The first and the third Sunday of each month, the Baptists would have access to the church. On the second and fourth Sundays, the Methodists would have access to the church. But every Sunday, first, second, third, fourth, and fifth, we all went to church together anyway. It's been about 5 or 6 years since that we had a service on a Memorial Day weekend at the Rising Star Baptist Church. They're just living in Benham, Kentucky.
They done left that mess. Thought they was gonna stay trapped. All over.
My dad, he moved to Cleveland and he worked in a steel mill. And after my 9th grade year, he moved all of the family there to Cleveland. When we left Kentucky, we had the Greyhound bus. And at that time, it was still very segregated. All the blacks halfway to Cleveland. And
y'all see that
my
internet
mother
acting up.
couldn't get off
Hold
the
on.
bus to get us water or anything.
My dad, he moved to Cleveland. And
Because they had no place for the blacks to go get water. And
he moved all of the
we wanted water.
there.
So it started to
To
rain, and it rained
When we
so
left
hard that
Kentucky, we had
she let the
Greyhound
window
bus.
down.
And at that time,
And she
it
got
was still very
water
segregated.
and an
All the
envelope
blacks had to sit
until
in
we
the
had
back.
enough water
And
to drink.
I never will
Because
forget
we
that it
wasn't
was
privy enough to go.
halfway to Cleveland, and my mother couldn't get off the bus
She
to
could
get us
have
water
purchased
or
everything that
anything
we needed.
because they had no
My
place
my
for the
husband's
blacks to go
sister,
get
we
water,
was best
and we wanted
in
water.
Kentucky.
So
And when he
it
came home from
started
the
to
military,
rain,
that's when I
and it
met
rained
him.
so
He
hard that
was from Benham,
she let the
Kentucky.
window
You
down,
just really entered
and she got
into a
water
different world
in
when
an
you stepped
envelope until we had enough water
out. And
to drink.
when we left
Because we
them,
wasn't privy enough to
we were
go
prepared,
into the
you know,
bus station
for hard times.
where she could have purchased
We
everything
were
that we needed.
well taught.
My
We
husband's
were
sister, we was best friends
fundamentally
in
sound,
Kentucky.
you know, with
And
things
when he
that
came
stick
home from
with
the
us
military, that's
now.
when I met him. He was from Benham, Kentucky.
Abilities of our
really
teachers
entered into a different world when you step. When we
stayed at Knox or college,
we were
and it would be
prepared,
their first job.
you know, for
City
hard
life.
times.
We
were
thought Eastern Kentucky was poor,
well
and I had
taught.
never
Our
seen a
teachers
person.
were really
But
good.
when I seen someone
We
eating out
were fundamentally
the garbage,
sound.
rich in the city and walk around with no shoes. Now we were shoes,
and you look
but
back and you
just it was
marvel
winter time
at
one
the
time.
abilities of our
A lot of them just went
teachers
straight to the
who
military. A
who
lot of
were
my uncles that are
relatively
from there,
young
after they went to the
because they
military,
come
they
up from
ended up in
Kentucky
different
State or
cities. Some
Oxford
of them
College,
stayed and made the
and it was
military their
either a
career.
job.
They all ended up military,
Eastern
so that's
Kentucky
he
was
was from
poor,
St. Louis, so
and
that's
I
how I
had
ended up in
never
St.
seen a
Louis.
poor
It was
person.
my mother.
But
I
I
went
seen
the
someone
opposite
eating out the
direction of
garbage
what
in
black
the city
people were
and
doing
walking
from a
around with no
migratory
shoes. Now we walk
perspective
around with no
back
shoes
in that particular
because
time.
we saving our
They were still
shoes.
migrating
Just it was winter
to
time one
Kentucky.
time. And
Once I
A lot of
got
them just went straight to the military. A
my
lot of my uncles
degree,
that are from there,
I
after they went to the military, they ended
realized
up in
that I
different
wanted to
cities.
go
Some of them
south.
stayed
I
and made
particularly
the
wanted to work on
military
his
their career. They all
tradition
ended
and,
up
and
in
for me to have
Springfield,
choices.
Massachusetts. There, my
So
parents met because my dad was in the
that's where
military, and
I
so
went.
that's how, and he was from
And
St.
so
Louis,
my
so that's how I
first
ended up in St.
position in
Louis.
higher
My mother.
education was at a small
I
school,
went the
liberal arts
opposite
school, and
direction
it's going
of
to be
what
my
black
base, even at a
people
position
were
at Emory
doing
University
from a migratory
in
perspective
Atlanta,
back in
Georgia,
that particular time.
and then
They were
subsequently
still
at Kennesaw
migrating
State
to the
University,
Detroits, the Cleveland,
Marietta,
especially if
Georgia.
you were in
Bernard
Kentucky.
Bickerstaff went
Once
to
I got
school and graduated from
my
East Benham High
degree,
School,
I
went off to
realized
college and
that I wanted to go
played pro.
south. I particularly wanted to work at a historically
Right
black
now
college here
involved in the NBA.
University,
We're so
and
proud of him.
the
And
ones
the
that
beauty
had
of that, he
tradition
does not gentle
position in higher
person.
education was at a small
And
school,
and
liberal arts
there's
school
nothing he
in
can do
Alabama called Talladega College. I knew that the South was going to
I went
be
to
my base,
Cleveland.
even though I
I
went back
ended
to the
up
Midwest to get a degree.
going
And so
to
I got a
Rio
position
Grande
at Emory
College,
University
University in Ohio,
in Atlanta,
for a year
Georgia,
and a half,
and
and
then
then drove out to
subsequently
San Diego
Kennesaw State University.
with a friend from
Marietta.
Cleveland. And it
Bernard
all started
High
from there.
School.
I
Went off to
attended
college
University of San Diego,
and
coached at the
played
University of San
basketball,
Diego,
played
and
pro
then
ball,
on to
and he's
the
right now
National Basketball
involved
Association.
in the NBA.
Even
So his
leaving
stick,
Kentucky,
his
you
chest
were
out,
still
his
and your
I am thus and such,
relatives.
and et cetera, et
So
cetera.
although
He's a very
I
humble,
left Benham,
gentle
it was
person, and
the
all of us
A lot
love
of
him.
my husband's
All of us love
friends
him.
was in
And
Cleveland,
there's nothing.
and we would always get
I
together
went to
on
Cleveland.
Saturday.
I ended up going to
Everybody is
Rio
scattered,
Grande
so we
College,
need
University in Ohio,
to
for a
see if we
year
can have a little
and a
reunion.
half,
Let's get
and then
together and
drove
see
out to
how many
San Diego with a friend from
people we
Cleveland.
can get.
And it all
And
started from
our
there.
first reunion,
And then
we
on
had
to
this hall,
the
and the
National
hall was
Basketball
named
Association.
Shakerly Hall.
Even
And
leaving Kentucky,
the hall,
you
but
were
we had
still
no
around your friends and your relatives. So although I left Benham,
stayed
it
in
was
different people's homes.
the same
I had so many people at
It
my
was a big city.
house.
They were the same
I had to
people.
send my
A lot
kids to my mother.
of my
We
husband's
couldn't get the
friends was in
people in there.
Cleveland,
Over
and we would
1,000
always
people
get together on
showed up,
Sundays
and we were all from
or
Kentucky.
Saturdays or
And I never will
holidays.
forget.
You know, eat
That night,
together
I
and
was
have
so
fun together.
dressed
And they
up.
said,
I
you know
thought
what?
I was so pretty.
Everybody is scattered,
I had
so
my
we need to see
done.
if we can have a
When
little
I got in
reunion.
that,
Let's get
my hair
together and
said,
see how many people we can
it
get.
was so hot in that place.
And our first reunion,
You couldn't breathe.
we didn't
They
send out no
overflowed
literature or
in
anything.
the
It was
parking
word
lot,
of
on the
mouth.
sidewalks, because you couldn't
We had
get
this
people in there.
hall, and
This
the
was the
hall
first
was
time
named
we tried
Shakerly
it.
Hall.
We didn't really reach
And the
out
hall
to
would only hold
until
about
about
300
the
people.
second reunion.
But we
Some of
had
the people
no
from
idea.
Detroit says, well, since
My husband's friends
you all had to get
kept
together,
coming, calling,
we're going to
Cleveland
have it
said,
in
we're coming
Detroit
up.
next
I had so
and
many
it just
people at my house.
building from
I
that.
had to send
We have
my
had
kids to
at
my
least
mother.
about
We
50
couldn't get the people in there
chapters. and
Over
now we're
1,000
down to
people
about
showed up.
12.
And
You
we
have
were all from
California,
Kentucky.
Texas,
And I
Kentucky,
never will forget.
Atlanta.
The Atlanta chapter was started in
that night.
19.
My hair done that day.
Started
When I got in that hall,
the first reunion.
my hair said,
The Lynch chapter
it was so hot in
came
that
to
place.
Atlanta and brought all
You
of
couldn't
their
breathe.
members
They overflowed in
and
the parking lot,
families.
on the
It
sidewalk.
just impressed me
You couldn't
very
get
much
people
to
in
see them how they
This
were.
was the first time we tried it. We
They-
didn't really branch out
Vice
to
President,
chapters until about
Secretary,
the second
Treasurer,
reunion.
Business Manager.
Some of the people from
Some might have
Detroit says,
a,
well, since
parliamentarian.
you all
We
had to
also
get
have
together.
bylaws that we
We're
go
going to
by.
have it in
I'm from
Detroit
Lynch,
next
Kentucky.
year. And then
Now I
after
live in
Detroit, I
Kentucky.
think we went to
started,
Chicago.
and I was actually
And
just
it
graduating from high school,
start building
which
from
my
that. We
father
have
and
had
uncle
at
and all
least
had started the
about
Lynch
50.
chapter. There was Jenkins, Wheelwright, Mac Roberts.
And now we're down to about 12.
From over
We
in
have
that end of the
California,
country.
Texas,
I was with high school,
Kentucky.
second chapter,
Chapter
where I
was
served as
started
secretary.
in 1966.
And then
My
as a
husband, Garfield Guest,
vice
started
president
the
for
reunion
33 years. If you wanted to
we
be a
had
new
our
chapter
first
for the Eastern
reunion.
Kentucky Social Club,
The
there's, if you're from
Lynch
originally
chapter
from Eastern
came to Atlanta.
Kentucky, you
brought
could
all
even
of
be
their
married into a
members
family of
and
somebody that was
families.
originally from
It
Eastern
just
Kentucky.
impressed me very
You'll
much
go
to
to
see
our
them how
executive
they
board meetings and
organized
ask
it.
to
Most
host
of
the
the
reunion. If their
organizations
executive
consist
board,
of a president, vice
we vote and
president,
see if you're ready to host the
secretary,
reunion.
treasurer, a business
And then at my
manager. Some might have
have
a
a club,
also
so
have
I helped
bylaws that
them
we go by.
establish a new chapter in Knoxville, Tennessee.
Now I
It
live in
consists of a lot of young
the
people.
social club started, and I was actually just graduating
It's
from
a
high
young
school.
chapter.
It's my
And
father and
kept
uncle
saying
and
we have to
all
get our
that
youth
started the Lynch
engaged, and
chapter.
we
There was
need new
Jenkins,
chapters,
Wheelwright,
young
Mac
blood.
Roberts,
And I
all
said,
those
hey,
people
why
were
don't we just start a chapter
to be the secretary of the
in
Lynch
St.
chapter,
Louis,
where I served as
hosting
secretary.
our very
If you
first
wanted to be
reunion.
a new chapter for the Eastern Kentucky Social Club, there's if you're originally from Eastern Kentucky, you could even be married into a family of somebody that was originally from Eastern Kentucky. You'll go to our executive and ask to host the reunion. That's where the executive board, we vote and see if you're ready
I'm
to
just
host
so
the
pleased to
reunion.
say
Well, so I helped them establish a new chapter, and it's a young chapter.
And we kept saying we have to get our. And I said, hey, why don't we just start a chapter? And right now we're seeing the first fruit.
I'm just so pleased to say.
Well, got your attention, right? 15 minutes, but I don't. There's only about 10 more minutes left of the